Today on GreenCars, the podcast, we're learning that charging an EV can be very different depending on where you live. For instance, it's easy in California, not so much in Hawaii. We're finding out that charging isn't equal, and it all starts right now. Aloha and welcome to GreenCars, the podcast, where we talk about all things involving hybrid, plug-in hybrid, and all-electric vehicles. I'm Trish Glose.
And I'm Dave Nichols. Today, we will be learning about the ease of owning an electric car can be very different depending on which state you live in.
Mm-hmm.
The Alternative Fuels Data Center website offers a map that shows you how many public charging stations there are by state, and you can see it live. You can see how many each station, each state has.
Okay, well, we first have to address the shirts.
Oh, yes.
Why are we wearing Hawaiian shirts?
Well, the whole episode is about Hawaii today. And the fact is, our producer, David Biondi, got these for us free.
Oh, I like free shirts. I like them.
Yeah.
This is, but the information that you just mentioned is making me a little uneasy. You know, I already have so much anxiety when it comes to charging, range.
Well, to help you with that,
Okay.
we've got some lovely Hawaiian drinks.
Oh.
Here's Mr.
Oh.
Biondi. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That
That
was special. Thank you.
Wow.
Well, cheers.
Cheers.
Here. These are lovely.
Wow.
Tangy.
Tastes good.
Delicious.
Anyway, so let's get back to the show, shall
Please, let's get back on track.
we? Pick a state, Trish. Any state.
Okay, let's start with California. Very EV friendly.
Yes. And it's a good choice because there are a whopping 46,585 charging stations in California.
Wow.
Pick another state.
Let's go in the middle. North Dakota.
Okay. Glad you're sitting down. That entire big state has a total of only 217 public charging stations.
Wow, that does not seem like a lot at all. What about Alaska? Very large state.
Another really big state, and it has only 124
What?
stations. Yep.
How is that even
It's true.
possible?
It just is.
Okay, I believe you.
That's what it is. That's and we're not just talking about big states with a small number of charging stations here. In some places, charging your EV may be very difficult for reasons including societal and economic disparity. But let's look at specifically the Hawaiian Islands, where there's a great interest in EVs. In fact, according to CNBC, Hawaii is the leader in the U.S., EV adoption ranking third in overall in the whole nation.
Wow, why Hawaii?
The cost of gasoline is extremely high.
Yes.
And the locals are very pro-sustainability. They love the islands, and they want to, do everything they can to promote renewable energy. J.D. Powers has listed Hawaii as third in the U.S. for EV adoption.
Okay, so then let's talking about charging stations. How many charging stations are in Hawaii?
817 chargers.
Okay,
period.
So what's the problem? That sounds like a lot of chargers for the islands.
It sounds like a lot,
Okay.
but there are more problems than just the number of chargers. To drill down, let's talk to our GreenCars expert in Hawaii. Ivan Drury is the Director of Insights for Edmunds. He lives in Waikiki on Oahu, and he knows what he's talking about. Welcome, Ivan.
Thanks for having me on. You two are looking great. Loving the shirts.
Thank you. Nice, huh? Yeah, we did this for you. These shirts are just for you. So, Ivan, I can see why Hawaiians would be pro EVs, such stewards of the land, right?
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely one of the major components, right? I know, economics, of course, comes into play, but in Hawaii, there is the different sense of, look, we live on an island. We must respect it. And there's a thing called Aina. You'll see it on people's shirts. You'll see it on hats. You'll see bumper stickers. And it really does mean that, you should take care of the place you live in. We only get one chance at this. And I think in Hawaii, that's very understood that every square inch counts. And the idea of having an EV because it has renewable energy sources definitely plays into that, right? There's no better way to say, look, I'm going to drive. I have to drive. We all have to work. But I do want at least one component of it to be something that's good for the earth.
Being on the islands, you don't really have to worry about things like range anxiety, do you? I mean, you can drive all day and go all the way around the Big Island in a day. What is it, 260 miles?
Yeah, you could literally do a round trip on the Big Island. You will come across some infrastructural challenges, though, because like these are some long stretches in which there will be no charging at all. I mean, you might want to knock on someone's door. They might let you plug in if you got a 110 adapter with you. But for the most part, it is easier in one sense because there's just less problems. There's no road trips, right? It's like when people are looking to buy a car, they think of those use cases that are maybe once every year, twice a year if they're lucky. They can go out with their family, go out for like 1,000 miles. Yeah, that's not going to happen here. So at least that one barrier to entry is removed for the most part. The question is then, okay, if I can't charge at home, where am I going to charge? And that's where we start to see that it does get a little more fickle.
It certainly makes sense to have an EV in Hawaii. Gas is more expensive there, right? So national average is $3.48 a gallon. In Hawaii, we're looking at currently $4.68 a gallon.
Easily. Yeah. I mean, that is definitely one of the main drivers. Hawaii's always been pro-electrification, right? So even before pure EVs came along, EV adoption rates over here, hybrid adoption rates were already very high. In part, you also kind of have a benefit of Toyota and Honda having such good market share here that when they introduced hybrids, receptivity was automatically going to kind of have like an easy benefit of, I've had 3 of those. It should be no problem. I trust this automaker. So there was already this idea that, look, I can trust technology. It's done good things for me. Coupled with the fact that, look, you are going to save a lot of money. It's not just like 10, 20 bucks. It's going to be potentially hundreds of dollars depending on what you're currently driving versus what's next. So we do have many reasons as to why, alternative powertrains are definitely a thing here.
I've heard about people who managed to find a working level 2 charger on the islands, but they had to pay $40 on top of what they were paying for charging, like $16 for charging, $40 for parking, just to get their car charged. And that's a thing in Hawaii, right?
That is 100% the biggest challenge. If you cannot charge at home and you do not have solar, you are kind of doubling down in some of the issues you're going to come across. I kind of jokingly say to people, like, it's actually easier to rent an EV as a tourist than to live here and charge. And by that, I mean, you're already paying for parking in a structure, right? And within that structure, there was potentially a charger. And it's probably going to be a little better maintained when it is under the umbrella of like a major hotel chain. Or you're going to a place at a time in which, if I work a 9 to 5, how am I supposed to charge between those hours unless my work has one available? Whereas if I'm on vacation, I can stop off whenever. And these locations are kind of conducive to where the tourists are going to go. So we've actually seen that with some people, the rentals, it kind of makes sense. But if you have a daily grind or 2, because again, economic struggles here, I know people don't see it often. It's like you have the haves with a lot of have, and then you have the have-nots. It's one of those things where it makes it very difficult when you start thinking, where am I going to charge this? And even if you have a single-family home, a lot of these neighborhoods, you drive through them, they are jam-packed because it's not just single-family, it's multi-generational. You might have like 4, 5, 6 cars parked in that driveway or off to the side. So, the logistical problem of just, hey, I could charge at home technically becomes more of an issue with like, hey, where are the keys for that other car? I got to shuffle the deck in order to even get my vehicle close to where I can plug it in.
There's also problems with those fast chargers. They're either scarce, and on some level, those level 3s are broken. I mean, this is a really big issue.
Yeah, 100%. And there's very few to begin with. And then on top of that, trying to find availability. And on top of that, again, is it working? I've seen the local chargers over here. It was dual plugs, one plug gone for months on end, and then it was wrapped up with caution tape saying, don't even use this thing. And I know there's like the anecdotal component to it that, you see things and admires your experiences, but you see that often enough and your receptivity starts going away. And also I'm in a building right now, condo, HOA, and they're like, hey, no chargers. Too bad, so sad. It can be another barrier to entry. The public chargers, those level 2s that are free, I think it's about 28% of the ones on the island, so almost like a third. Yeah, they're at the mall, they're at these other, popular places, but you have to hunt them down and contend with other people. And if you're a resident, that contention point is going to also come to the same point in which many others are looking for charging as well. So again, this is just one of those things where it's like, if we could have those issues solved, just like the rest of the states, right? This isn't something that's super unique to Hawaii, but it becomes kind of like more of an issue because you think, man, there's so many good benefits and it's something I really want, but can I really do it? And you start researching a little more, you're like, oh, if I only had the ideal situation, it would really benefit me out here, almost more so than a lot of other locations.
Hey, we like the cat.
Saw cattail, yeah. Walking through, I'm like, oh, I should put her away in the room.
Well, and if you're looking for a DC fast charger, maybe you're just on the islands for a short time. But if you're looking for a DC fast charger, Hawaii Electric appears to be the only game in town.
Yeah, I mean, the spottiness of whether or not they're working, that's always an issue. And that's the thing is that when you look at how few there really are, and is that location even relatively convenient? You notice most of them are. They're kind of in the center of the island or they're kind of in the more populated places. But hey, what if you go to the North Shore? You can't plan out every single moment of every day with range anxiety, right? Like, that's just not going to work. So once you start having those considerations where people are afraid, where they're like, look, I got to go to the other side of town just to charge, or I'm right at the verge of like being out, where am I going to go? It just shuts it down. And it's unfortunate because we have so many things going for us, so many rationales as to why one would adopt an EV, why this is so meant for here, right? We've got all the sunshine in the world. We've got all the solar power you could ever want, but it's getting it into the cars. That is really our problem.
And the problem's getting worse because more and more people are buying EVs, right? And the number of electric vehicles in Hawaii increased like 31% in 2023, accounting for like 16% of all new car sales. Only California and the District of Columbia have more EVs per capita.
Yeah, it's right. It's like it's this odd problem where it gets compounded, and the reasons why you do not want one are also being compounded, right? Like you say, okay, well, sales are great, but it's like, hey, what are we doing about the rest of it? And some parts of the island, they're getting better than others. In some parts you have more single-family homes, you have more ability to charge at home, but in the densest part of the island, that's where the problems are. It's hard to find parking in general, let alone, hey, I got to park my car somewhere, and there has to be a charger, and that charger has to be open. It's like, now you're butting into people's everyday lives. And I mean, this is a universal issue where we know that for consumers, if you have to change your lifestyle, that's a big turnoff. And that's why hybrids and plugins do better in that sense when it comes to receptivity, because I can just live my life as is, reap a vast majority of the benefits, but at the same time, not have to change anything. I think that, and like you mentioned earlier, how much someone has to pay at a level 2 or a level 3, right? If they don't get that free charging, technically, you can do some of that math and you'll actually find out that you're paying more or the same as if you'd gotten just a hybrid or had a very fuel-efficient vehicle from the get-go.
Well, and what's Hawaii Electric say about all this? I mean, I've heard that they will need at least 528 additional new chargers to meet demand in just the next few years. I mean, what is their reaction to all this?
I think that it's unfortunate that, we had the fires almost this time last year in Maui. So their emphasis on what are we going to do for EVs, the focus can't be there. They've got other challenges right now that are just, what are we going to do with existing electrification structures? We've got this rail project where people are moving things around. They're talking about moving an entire utilities building. That's been going on for decades. That is well behind when it was due. That, just kind of compounds that issue even more so. I think that, not that it's on the back burner, because they know this is coming. And it causes nothing but problems to be behind the ball. But unfortunately, it's not the number one concern. I think that for a lot of people, or for a lot of people at HECO, hold on, let me move this cat out the way. She's popping in and out. Oh, crazy cat. Yeah, the cat, I love her. I hope she'd just jump back here and sit there instead, but she decides to keep walking all over my desk. But yeah, when it comes to HECO, I mean, they do have plans, but the rollout's going to be the problem. Again, this is like another problem altogether. it's just employment, right? Unemployment here is very low. We usually have to fly in people from the mainland for certain projects because there's literally nobody to do them here. So it's like, yeah, unemployment's low. That's fantastic. People are employed. Some people are overemployed. But at the same time, there's certain things that you just cannot get on island. And people have to come in from the mainland to kind of help support that. And it's like, is that in HECO's budget as well? Right? Sourcing materials and flying people from, even inter-island. I remember I lived in Kona. The guys who were painting my building lived in Kauai. And I was like, hey, I actually know exactly where you're from. I used to live over there too. And he's like, yeah, they fly me out here to paint the doors. I was like, just to paint doors. Now imagine trying to set up electric charging stations, right? So it sounds kind of crazy, but, getting the right, employment to do these kinds of things, that's another challenge in itself. I mean, there's all kinds of programs that the government's trying to incentivize so that citizens go into these trades. But again, we're not there yet, right? You can't just put these things up overnight.
Right. Well, we definitely want to keep up with you, keep track of what's going on, and see how this story evolves. We don't want you to go anywhere, though. We have some questions, more questions for Ivan.
Yes, indeed. In fact, it's time to slice open the perfect pineapple of chat as we bite into keeping it current.
Now, these are all questions that come to us through our social media. They're actual comments. Here we go, Ivan. Hang on, everybody. We get some comments from our social media pages, a little colorful. We like to put them out to our interview guests. Ivan, we have a comment from Frank Coffey in which he says, we have had a Tesla Model 3 since January 2022 and have had no repairs after 30,000 miles. As for tires, we didn't see any extra wear. In fact, my 2013 Cadillac ATS used the same exact tires and they only lasted 20,000 miles, while the Tesla's tires, again, lasted 30,000 miles. But that may be because the PSI is higher on the Tesla. What do you think, Ivan? We hear that EVs generally eat up tires, but we also get a lot of comments like this.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Again, like many things when it comes down to individual experiences, it's driver experience, right? It's one of those things where are you on the gas or the pedal, the EV pedal all the time? You're braking. I mean, this is one of the things where alternatively, we would be talking about MPG and ICE vehicles. I get 15, I get 19, well, I get 20, and I get 18. It's like, yeah, but how do you drive that thing? I mean, are you showing everybody the full capabilities of your EV and its warp speed? Things like that, they make a huge difference. Comparing, the ATS and what it's meant for versus a Model 3. While technically, yes, they are just passenger cars and they've got four wheels and a steering wheel, it really depends on how you drive it and what you're up to. Brand of tires matters, what they're rated for. Those EV-specific tires, yes, they're very specific. ATS, I don't know what package you could have, maybe a performance package. Those things came with some pretty fun stuff that could really tear into your tire usage.
Well, and here's a comment from Willie Strongen who says, how about line anxiety, where you wait in line for 45 minutes to get a 20-minute charge on Interstate 5 from San Francisco to Los Angeles? Ivan, what about that?
That's real. I mean, I know people get line anxiety at a gas station, all right? Like, think about Costco. Costco gas is constantly the best price in town. Therefore, they have the most vehicles lined up. But you see it. You can actually watch someone's face as they pull up and they have to make that decision. Right-hand side, left-hand side, where's my filler? Am I willing to pull the thing over and fill up on the other end? And there's this stutter step kind of motion with the steering wheel and everything. It's like, look, that's only exacerbated by the fact that the EVs take as long as they do to charge. And it's one of those things that, of course, it'll get reduced. It could potentially go away, battery swapping, super duper fast charging, all these inventions and technology that are taking off, the J curve of tech, right? It'll cure that problem. But until it's gone, it's only going to get worse. I think for people that have Teslas, this is actually something that they did not anticipate once the supercharger network opened up, right? You had essentially every automaker. I honestly can't even think of the holdouts that have adapted the plug and to say, yes, we too will charge at those supercharging stations. And I've heard that on weekends, and especially in California from my wonderful coworkers in SoCal, yeah, if you go to a supercharging station on a holiday weekend, you're going to wait. And that wait can be extremely long. And we're talking about some of the best charging in the nation, right? Where vehicles should be charged, they should be charged quickly. You're going to have to wait. And would that make you anxious? Yeah, because there's only so much food I can eat while I wait. There's only so many things I can fill my time with before I'm like, this is getting expensive. What am I going to do? I don't want to work right now. It's the weekend, right? This isn't something like, hey, I've got a lot of alternatives other than to get to where I'm trying to go.
Line anxiety. Okay, I'll add that to my long list of other anxieties I already have. Ivan, our last comment for you comes from Milky Chai, who says, I believe that EVs are part of our future, but I'm not sold on the idea that electric cars are the solution. A single EV battery is that's 100 kilowatt hours, right? Yeah. And for the size of the battery, you could power 200 e-bikes. So our question in Hawaii, are e-bikes hot right now on the islands?
Extremely prevalent. To the point where there's probably going to have to be some level of regulation other than, I forget what the levels are for e-bikes, the different speeds, to the point where they're essentially full-on motorcycles. But we have a lot of e-bikes, not just the quasi-ride-sharing ones, with little, not meant to go over 12 miles an hour stuff, but full-on e-bikes. I'm like, wow, you're on a super bike. That thing's so fast. So it's definitely true. The utilization of where we put battery technology into smaller or into hybrid, or if it's just something with two wheels instead, we could, if we were actually saying look, we're going to get everybody together and determine what is the best optimal mix of hybrids, plug-in hybrids, pure EV, e-bikes, scooters. There's only so much battery material, right? We're mining that stuff like crazy. And of course, that's a different process, detrimental thing all in itself. But I think that's kind of where Toyota came through. They were like, look, we're not going to just do EVs. They're barely hopping on board right now, but their hybrid strategy has paid off exponentially, to the point where best-selling sedan Camry is now hybrid only. And you can take that battery and either power one vehicle or a dozen. And that it really does have its dividends in the end of the day.
Well, thank you so much, Ivan, for spending some time with us today and answering some of our comments. These are actual comments. Very helpful. Thank you so much. Thanks, Ivan.
What a great interview. I'm so thrilled Ivan's part of the GreenCars podcast family now. We've got to check in with him again soon.
Absolutely. And, our crew was really looking forward to this interview, too.
What makes you say that?
Well, take a look at them. They're all wearing their best luau attire.
Nice guys, looking good. They look good.
Yeah, sort of good.
Meanwhile, here in the lower 48, Southern Oregon University has become its own separate city focused on sustainability in so many different forms. Dave and I spent a day on campus checking it out. We are back at the farm with Sierra. I know these projects take money, right? So talk to me about the Green Fund.
Yeah, so the Student Green Fund is run through our Student Green Tag fee. So essentially students pay a very small fee each term that they're at school.
Sustainability to me means how we can contribute to a healthier environment, social justice, as well as a stronger economy. It's not about trade-offs between them. It's about how we can build better, how we can make the future more beautiful, and think about our actions as individuals, think about our actions as organizations, and think about our actions as businesses, because we all have an impact on the future.
Well, and how are you helping that to happen right here on the campus?
So we think about the actions we can take as an organization at SOU. As a campus, I think of us as a small city, a small town.
Yeah, we've had a lot of fun with Sierra today and really teaching me about all the things on campus that are very sustainable.
There's
I'm going to share that with the world.
Yeah, and come back for more. There's so much more.
Will do. Thanks, Sierra.
Thanks.
I loved our day at SOU. It's just so cool to see what people are doing with sustainability. And, Lithium Motors and GreenCars were very proud to be part of their ongoing efforts. And friends, that concludes another thrill-packed episode of GreenCars, the podcast.
And we would love to hear from you. If you're watching these episodes, drop us a comment on our YouTube channel. And if you're listening to these podcasts, please feel free to leave us a comment on any of our social media platforms. We love hearing from all of our listeners and watchers, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Don't forget, when it comes to EV, stay informed, stay charged. Hey, Dave, mahalo.
Mahalo.
Follow us at GreenCars HQ. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Email us, thepodcast@greencars.com.